everyone, my name's Sam and welcome to my channel Frugalisama. I'm here to talk about all things dressmaking, and today is day 8 of my 100 days of sewing. This week I'm going to talk about some patterns that I think are ideal for people who are just starting to sew but also who want to improve some of their techniques. So I've got a bit of video footage of me sewing along to one of the projects today, and each day this week I will do the same. I will sew up a project, talk you through it and tell you why I think it's ideal as number one as a budget sewing project, and number two how easy it is to actually execute. The eagle-eyed of you amongst you might notice that I'm in a slightly different location, and that is because I've just finished sewing, and rather than try and set up everything, I'm just trying to do it a little bit more off the cuff, if you like. So first of all, I would like to thank everyone who has subscribed already, and if you would like to see more videos similar to this, I am filming Monday to Friday in this 100 Days of Sewing series. I will be posting those videos on a Wednesday and a Friday, providing the technology permits. I was a little bit late this week, I got some out on Saturday morning. And then on Sunday I will still be posting videos about reviews or sewing plans, that sort of thing. But the 100 Days of Sewing is a separate series, and it's just here to help anybody who's sewing on a budget or starting to sew or just wants to improve some of their techniques. So today's project is going to be a MorsBagger, which is one of these. One of these. Not a garment, Sam, I hear you say. I know. And I wanted to bring something so that people who have never sewn a garment before can just build a confidence on a machine. Now, I'm not going to show people how to thread a machine or how to really use a machine. I think there's plenty of good videos out there, and everybody's machine's different and everybody's at different stages. But I think a bag is a great project to start on if you've never sewn anything before. It's just straight lines, and you've no fitting issues. You don't have to have a lot of fabric, you don't have to have a lot of tools. It's just very basic, and you can do a couple of these, build up your confidence on a machine. And if you haven't been sewing for quite a while, maybe you've come back to sewing, or you're just building your skills, or you've done quilting and not garment making. There's a couple of techniques in this project that will build your skills. I'm specifically thinking about French seams. I've taught sewing this bag to beginners before, and I've told them that they've sewn a French seam and they haven't realised that a French seam really is considered by some people as a bit of a more intermediate technique. I want to just demystify French seams really, because they aren't difficult, and they are a really good technique to learn, especially if you don't have an overlocker or a serger. So they are really good. It's a really good technique to learn, regardless of what your sewing skills are. You just need very basic tools to make one of these. So just something to mark your fabric with. I use a friction pen, but you can use anything. A pair of scissors, and obviously your trusty old sewing machine. I've got mine covered up because I've got a dog and it gets dusty. So a little bit of history about MorsBaggers. They have been going for quite some time now. There is a website, and you can download a little crib sheet that will give you the dimensions on it, and there is actually a good video on there that will show you how to make one. What I love about MorsBaggers is that they encourage you to use any old fabric. You can use duvet covers, I've used tea towels, I've used all sorts of bits and bats of scraps. I've brought some along here. I mentioned before that we've got something called Recycle Yard near us, and she sells off what are essentially sample books from curtain companies. So they're just lots of squares like this, they've got a strip at the bottom that tells you what it is, and there's probably about a 20 in there, and these are the perfect size for making a bag. I've made a couple out of these. I keep some of the fabric so nice that it's too nice to make into a bag. I want to make other projects with it, but I've made all sorts out of these. But these are ideal. Obviously, not everybody's going to be able to get hold of them, but it's just to demonstrate that it's a good budget project. You can make it out of just about anything. So, like I say, I've made it out of old tea towels. They have in November they have MorsBagger, I think they call it, where they challenge people to make one a day, and then the other great thing is that they encourage you to actually give these MorsBags away. So you make them and give them away. Obviously you can keep them if you want, but the idea is that you're keeping plastic bag usage down. That is the big thing. You're keeping fabric out of the landfill, and you're keeping plastic bag usage down. So yeah, great little scrap buster if you've got an old duvet kicking about, like I've spoken about before, or you can make any larger pieces of fabric. You only really need a metre of fabric. If it's a full width, you can do it on half a metre of fabric, then you will just need to join it at the bottom. So I'm going to insert some footage now of how I make a Mors bag, and you will see French seams demonstrated there. There is a label on it. You don't need to buy the labels, but I'm just going to say that these video tutorials that the MorsBagger website have are all for free, and they don't encourage you to sell these bags. The idea is that you make them to give away. You know, it wouldn't be ethical to sell them, but you don't have to put the label on, is what my point. But I will leave a link in my description box if you want the labels. They aren't very expensive at all. I think I bought 50 last time for £5 or something like that. And I tend to, when I go to sewing classes, I tend to sort of give them out for people. And I just, you know, I think once you've learned these skills and you've built up your confidence on a sewing machine, then you can tackle anything really. Okay, so I will go over to the video footage that talks you through how to make a Mors bag, and I will be back with you after that. Okay, bye. So making a Mors bag, you will need a piece of fabric which is approximately 1 metre long, and you can usually get around about 3 out of 1 metre piece. You want to make sure that the fabric is on the fold like that, and if you're bothered about directional print, this is directional. If it bothers you, you can take 2 50cm pieces, or perhaps 51 centimetres to allow for seam allowances, and sew them together so that they are both the correct way. For this demonstration, I'm just going to leave it as it is. It doesn't bother me, it's a bag. You're going to cut your fabric 50 centimetres depth by 46 centimetres width. And it doesn't matter if it's a centimetre either way. If that's what fits on your fabric, just do whatever fits on your fabric. You'll get either a smaller or a larger bag. What I'd recommend is measuring the width of your fabric. Sometimes it's more than 150, sometimes it's less, and then calculating from there how many you want to get across the width. You want to be cutting 2 rectangles. These are approximately 10 centimetres by 46. You can make them as long as you want, and you can make them a little bit wider or narrower. I think these might actually be 11 centimetres. It doesn't matter as long as they're both the same, because you don't want one handle longer than the other or wider than the other. It really doesn't matter about the direction of your print neither. Like I say, it's a bag, so it really doesn't matter. I'll show you 2 ways to make the handles. First one is just by eye, or you can measure if you like, and you are going to fold in around about 1 inch, press,
not a seamstress unless you've got an iron. Turn it round, do the same for the other side. Same amount. And then fold it in half. And press again. That's one handle. And you will be sewing down either side. And you can either use pins or not, it's entirely up to you. It depends on how confident you are. The other way, if you're just not quite so confident by doing it by eye, and you'll notice I've still got the selvage on here, again, that's absolutely fine. This part of the handle will be going inside the bag so it won't be seen. If you're not quite so confident with your doing things by eye, you can just press that down the middle first, or you can finger press it, you don't have to use an iron. You've got the iron in your hand, you might as well use it. And then fold each edge, each long edge in towards that, into that fold. Try not to overlap it. Flip it round, same again. And back in half. And that's your two handles done. So the next thing you need to do is just mark the bag where you want the handles to be and press down the top edges before you go to do any sewing. Like I say, there's more pressing in sewing than there is in anything else. So you're going to turn over this top edge around about 1 centimetre, press it down. To the end, fold it over again around about 1 inch. You can measure it if you like. Handy dandy little tape measure around my neck as always. So there you've got 1 inch. These measurements do not have to be that accurate, they just need to be the same both sides. It's up to you, it just affects the size of your bag. You're not fitting it onto anything, so it doesn't really matter. So you do the same for the other side. And this is a good time to check that they're both the same size. That'll do. So the next little job is to just find out the placement of your where you're going to put the handles. These were cut at 46 centimetres, so 23 should be the middle. And I'm using a friction pen. You can use whatever. A friction pen just irons off, so you're not marking your fabric. So I'm just going to mark it on the front for now because I want to place the label as well. But you're actually working from the inside of the bag. So if you just fold that over, and it's up to you how you do that. I reckon about 15 centimetres in from either side is about right. I've done these before, so that's kind of what I go with, but you can have them as spaced out as much as you like. You're not actually putting these in right now, you're just measuring it for when you go to the machine. So that's your 15. That's your 15. And just one final thing is I would prefer my label to go on the side where the floral is going up, but again it's up to you. One side's going to be upside down because it's been cut on the fold. To me it really doesn't matter on a bag. If it bothers you, then you would cut it in half. And you can put these labels any which way you like. I like to put them in the centre, but put it down at the bottom or to the side or upside down. the idea is then people will talk about them and ask you where they've come from, and you can tell them that you're saving the world one MorsBagger at a time.
So I'm over at my machine now. I've changed my stitch length to 2.6. Hopefully you can see that there. And I'm just going to sew the handles, just down both edges, about 1/8 of an inch from the edge. I'm not using pins, but you can do if you want. And what you'll probably see me do is join both of these on together. I'll do what's called chain stitching. Then I will sew the label on. I'll bob it back on slow-mo so you don't have to watch it all. So there we are, we've got the label on and the handles done. And now I'm just going to place the handles where I made those markings. Handles sewn, you will have seen me chain stitch those, and that just means that you're not taking the needle out of the fabric. It's just a bit more efficient and you've got less snipping to do. So I'm just nipping those ends off now, and all done. And now I'm just going to place the labels on, all done. So I'm just going to place those handles in there now, those markings that we made earlier, and I'm just going to use quilter's clips to do this, but you can use pins, whatever you like. And you just need to make sure that your handles aren't twisted. Just fold them in half and bob them right up to the fold. So that fold there, you need to make sure that that goes in the middle of that marking that you've made. And again at this side. And you either pin or clip. I have these quilter's clips because I've done quite a bit of bag making, so I just find them a little bit easier. I don't stab myself quite so often. And pop those in there. Same for the other side, flip it round. And like I say, that selvage is hidden up there. Just making sure that those markings are in the middle of the handle. And just one quick check before you go to the sewing machine, just bring them both up together and make sure that they're aligned. So make sure your edges are together and those two handles are aligned. That's fine, okay. So what you're going to do now is you're going to go back to the machine, you're going to sew along that bottom edge there, around about 1/8 of an inch away from the edge, and then you're going to flip these handles up like that and sew along the top edge. And when you come to each handle, you want to sew over it once, back again and back again, so it gets 3 lines of stitching in, just to give it that extra strength. So I will go to the machine now and sew those up, and we'll be back with you in a second. So as you approach the handle here, you're going to sew across it, and you're as well sewing across it 3 times. So I do a back stitch, but you can stop and turn your project around. So I'll show you both ways of doing that whilst I'm coming up to it. So I've stopped, I'm going to press my back key, go backwards, release it, come forwards again. So that's just one way. The other way is to sew straight through the top. Stop with your needle down, turn your work all the way around. Go back over the top of the stitching that you've just done. Stop again with your needle down, turn it back round, and then sew back to the end. When you get to the end, don't forget to backstitch. It's not actually that necessary in this particular project because it's getting trapped within the seam, but it's just good practice. And that's your handles on, just the side seams to sew up now. So now I'm going to show you how to do some French seams. So you're taking your bag, folding it in half so the handles are aligned and your side seams align, and you're going to sew down each side, and it's up to you what seam allowance you give. I'm going to give it probably 1/2 inch, and then I'm going to trim it, and then I'm going to turn it inside out and sew again, and that is all a French seam is. There's no mystery at all. So essentially you are, rather than sewing right sides together, which if you have sewn a few things before, that's what you'll be used to, you are sewing wrong sides together. So ensure that the label, if you've got a label, is facing out so that you can see it, or the good side of your fabric. So you want to place your needle down, start a little bit inside. So I've started probably about 5/8 of an inch in from the edge, put my needle down, and then I'm going to back stitch first. And then I'm going to come forward and I'm sewing at 1/2 inch. Right, so we're nearly there. Just one last lot of stitching to do after we've cut these seams down. So we've sewn wrong sides together. I've sewn at 1/2 inch. It doesn't matter if you want to do it at 3/8 of an inch, you can. If you want to do it a little bit wider, if you're feeling a bit nervous about seam allowances, you can do that too. I haven't trimmed my threads because I'll do that when I cut this down. And essentially, with a French seam, you want to encase this seam. When you sew right sides together, you want to encase the raw seam. So you're going to snip as close as you dare to the seam allowance. 1/8 of an inch is absolutely close enough. You don't have to. You don't want to risk snipping through the sewing. So I'm just going to snip through. Hopefully you can't see that. Okay, we'll do it this way. Snip through. Cutting the threads at the same time. Repeat for the other side, and then we're going to iron it, and then we're going to do our last bit of stitching. So we're all nicely neat and trimmed down there, so we're just going to flip it to the inside out, wrong side, poke out your corners with your finger. You can use a tool if you want, if you're that bothered. It's a bag. Always good practice to use these things though if you've got one in your hand. And then I'm just going to press it, because like I say, you're not a seamstress until you use an iron. And then we're going to go back to the machine and we're going to sew that at 1/4 of an inch. If you've left your seam allowance at the other side at 1/8 of an inch, and you sew at 1/4 of an inch, you should encase it nicely without any little threads coming through. Now you've got your completed Mars bag. In fact, I've got 2 because I made 2 during this demonstration. I'm just going to give them a final press before we're finished, because that's just a habit I have. And I think it makes them look a bit nicer. And there you go, 2 completed Mars bags. And last thing to do is to give them away. My pals have got a birthday tomorrow, so I'm going to use one as wrapping paper for a gin, and the other one I will keep in my bag, and if I see somebody in a supermarket that needs a bag, I will give it to them, or I'll use it myself, whatever. Just a couple of final words about the fabric that I used. This fabric was bought on a car boot sale for £5, and I think I got about 5 metres. I've made all sorts from it, so this is sort of the last little bits now that I've come to. Just in case you were wondering why I wasn't using a duvet cover, I don't have any left after making all the scrubs bags, unfortunately, so I'm just using remnants that I bought. So it's still stopping it from going to landfill. And another thing that I find a little bit wasteful is pattern placement. As you can see in this one, it probably would have looked nicer if that bouquet of roses was in the middle there, but it's just a waste of fabric. You can, if you're bothered about it, then you can do pattern placement if you want. Same with it being upside down at the other side. It's not really worth it for a bag. Obviously, it is if you're making garments. You really need to be aware of pattern placement and the direction of print. And all the direction of print it means is that it has a right way up and a wrong way up. So obviously that's the right way up because the bow's at the bottom, and that's the wrong way up. Again, it doesn't matter at all. Okay, so I'm back now, and I hope you enjoyed that. So yeah, they're a really good little project. Just when you're choosing your fabric, I would just say make sure that you choose something that's going to be strong enough to hold those tins of beans or whatever you're planning on putting in. Once you've done a few, you can customise it. You can put a box bottom in, you can make your handles longer so it goes over your shoulder. There's all sorts of things that you can do with one of these bags. And I do think they're just an ideal starter project. But like I said, they're good for building skills such as French seams, using up also as a scrap buster, and keeping fabric out of landfill, and they're recyclable, so you're not throwing it away, you're using it time and time again. And you can use them as gifts. I've actually used one of mine as gift wrap. They're actually at Christmas, great little Christmas or birthdays. Great for wrapping awkward presents, but again you're reducing waste from landfill. I found all sorts of uses for them. So I sewed up a couple of these at the Manchester Sewing Bee and gave them to the organisers, Alex and Amy, and kept one for myself as a nice little reminder. I've made one out of scraps of fabric after I did the 30 days in November. I used all the scraps, pieced them all together sort of fairly randomly, and did sort of a patchwork effect on there. Even the handles are all pieced together. You can have some real fun with it. I've actually quilted this one, so it's fully lined. We've got a little pocket in there. Hope you can see that. Just using all the random scraps that I had left over from the ones that I made over the 30 days. I'll insert a picture of the ones that I made, and I actually took them all to the recycle yard that I keep chatting about, so that she can put any purchases in there. She was quite pleased about that. So I think that's all I've got to say today. I'm going to be back tomorrow making another little project that I think is ideal for beginners, and I will speak to you tomorrow. If you think this video has been useful, please like and subscribe. I'm doing 100 days of sewing. Again, I'm filming Monday to Friday. I will have other videos on a Sunday, reviews or hauls or plans, that sort of thing. Okay, thank you for joining me, and I will speak to you later. Bye.
and you give them away. Goodbye.